Get ready for a wild tale. You might think it's hilarious, but hear me out. In Australia, even cunning foxes aren't just cute, they're troublemakers. Attacks on humans are on the rise, and some folks have become direct targets of a particularly feisty Melbourne fox. Yeah, you read that right. This vixen bit multiple people over a few weeks for no reason other than she felt like it. On top of being a human threat, these Aussie invaders are destroying one-of-a-kind wildlife and stripping farms bare. It's no wonder Aussies declared all-out war on the sly predators. But where did these foxes even come from? The story starts with us humans. Let's dive back into our Aussie tale. You're about to find out how this wild story got even wilder. Here's what happened when European settlers arrived in New South Wales all the way back in 1845. They didn't bring over your average farm animals like sheep or cows. Instead, they brought along a popular pastime from England called fox hunting. This was their chance to enjoy something familiar while living on the other side of the globe. And just like that, many foxes were set loose around Melbourne. Only about 2 decades later, in Victoria, foxes started getting viewed as pests. By the time a century rolled by, these sly animals had made their way across Australia's mainland and are now found almost everywhere, all thanks to people releasing them and the rabbits we'll talk more about soon. So here's what really kick-started this fox invasion, with European settlers dropping off these sly animals. It turned out to be more than just a fun pastime. The rabbits they brought along became an easy meal for the foxes, leading to an explosion in their population. Fast forward to today, there are roughly 1.7 million foxes spread across about 80% of Australia's mainland and over 50 islands. They're pretty thin on the ground up north in Queensland or over in Tasmania, but everywhere else, they've got a free-for-all due to not having enough natural predators. Humans do try to control their numbers by culling them when we can or through draughts, but it doesn't make too big of a dent. These adaptable critters love hanging out in places with moderate climates like forests and farmland near cities where they can scavenge for food and find cozy shelters. Talk about having it all. The damage is staggering. With their insatiable appetites, these sly critters play a major role in Australia's ecosystem imbalance. One single red fox can gobble down about 14 ounces every night, amounting to an astonishing 330 pounds of food per year. But here's the kicker, they don't just stop at eating what they catch, no way. A fox will kill multiple animals in a night, leaving behind only a small portion of its prey as dinner. Multiply this by hundreds of thousands of foxes across Australia, and we get an overwhelming figure. Around 300 million native animals meet their untimely demise each year thanks to the red fox invasion. Their voracious feeding habits have put over 48 species of mammals, 14 types of birds, 12 reptiles, and 2 amphibians in a precarious position. With such a broad and devastating impact on Australia's wildlife, it's hard not to see them as one of the country's most unwanted guests. Digging deeper into the stats reveals an even more concerning picture. Globally, red fox predation takes a heavy toll, claiming an estimated 88 million reptiles, 111 million birds, and a whopping 368 million mammals each year. Now, you might think that these sly critters are just ruthless predators out to wreak havoc. But hold on, their feeding habits aren't as villainous as they seem. Foxes actually store excess food for later use in a clever survival strategy. They bury it in hidden little holes and cover it with soil or debris, creating an emergency stash for when times get tough. Whether it's due to harsh weather conditions, poor hunting luck from injuries, or simply a bad season, foxes rely on their stashed goods to keep going until things pick up again. Now let's dive into the complex role of red foxes as both predators and potential ecosystem saviors. These sly critters are responsible for a staggering 368 million mammals, 111 million birds, and a whopping 88 million reptiles falling prey to their cunning tactics each year. While this might seem like an alarming statistic, there's more to the story than meets the eye. Foxes have a unique survival strategy they use to stockpile food for when times get tough. They cleverly bury excess meals in hidden spots around their territory and rely on these emergency stashes to see them through harsh weather, injuries, or just plain bad luck. But here's where it gets interesting. Foxes are not the destructive force we often make them out to be, especially when it comes to invasive species. With an appetite for 259 million of these unwanted critters each year, they help control house mouse and rabbit populations as well as livestock. In Australia in particular, red foxes play a pivotal role in keeping feral cat numbers in check, acting as a natural buffer against the damage these cats cause to local ecosystems. Without this predator-prey dynamic, invasive species like feral cats could spread uncontrollably across nearly 100% of Australian territory, including remote islands. So there's more to the story of red foxes than just being cunning predators. They're also unsung heroes in our fight against invasive species. Let's talk about the harsh reality of red foxes in the wild. These cunning creatures are often viewed as sly villains, but how much of their reputation is deserved? The truth is, over the past 130 years, they've played a significant role in pushing many native land species to the edge of extinction. The list of endangered animals affected by foxes is long and devastating, from the orange-bellied parrot and spotted quail thrush to Gilbert's potteroo, certain petrel species, and even the western swamp tortoise. All of these unique creatures are teetering on the brink of complete disappearance. In a striking example, Granite Island in South Australia saw its penguin population drastically dwindle from an already low number after foxes killed 9 birds in just 2 weeks, leaving only 12 survivors. Without human intervention, it's safe to say that foxes would have mercilessly wiped out what was left of the penguins. And this is not a one-time incident. Evidence points to red foxes being directly responsible for driving entire species to extinction. This uncomfortable truth forces us to question our perception of these once maligned animals and reevaluate their place in our ecosystems. The red fox invasion in southern Australia during the late 1800s and early 1900s has left an unsettling trail of extinction behind it. As these cunning predators spread across the region, we witnessed the disappearance of several unique species: the batong, greater bilby numbat, bridle nail-tailed wallaby, and even the quokka. These animals were seemingly decimated by the fox's relentless pursuit, managing to survive only on islands or mainland areas devoid of these predators. But here's a mind-blowing fact. Scientists initially thought tree-dwelling species like koalas were safe from these fox attacks until they discovered that foxes have no qualms about scaling trees. Yes, you read that right. Red foxes can climb up to 13 high in pursuit of unsuspecting prey. Imagine the shock when someone spots a fox lounging in a tree or sniffing out scents in the treetops. It's clear this wasn't just a whim. This disturbing revelation drives home one harsh truth: no animal is truly safe once it enters the crosshairs of these formidable predators. Buckle up, folks, because we're about to dive into a really concerning development. Scientists have been monitoring both wild and city-dwelling red fox populations, and what they found is quite alarming. Urban foxes are not only heftier but also larger in size compared to their wild counterparts. It's not just extra padding making them bigger, it's actually changes to their skeletal structure that allow them to grow more massive. Now imagine these voracious predators getting even deadlier. It paints a pretty frightening picture, doesn't it? Given their role in the extinction of 14 out of Australia's 34 species lost since 1788, the future for native animals seems bleak. And it gets worse. Foxes are also known to wreak havoc on farms, posing significant challenges for farmers and agricultural practices. But let's take a closer look at these claims against the red fox. Are they as villainous as we think, or is there more to this cunning predator's story? The devastating impact of these sly predators on Australia's agriculture is nothing short of staggering, clocking in at an annual cost of a whopping $8 million. Sheep farmers take the hardest hit, and one could say they're bearing the brunt of a predator with an appetite that just keeps getting hungrier. A single fox can cause significant financial loss by brutally slaughtering up to 12 lambs in a single night, translating to more than a week's worth of earnings down the drain. But it doesn't stop there. These cunning hunters have a knack for adaptability that leaves farmers at their wits' end. Eradicating them completely from a farm is nearly impossible, as new groups quickly move in to fill the void within just a week, leaving farmers right back where they started, facing yet another wave of fox-related challenges. It's safe to say that introducing these foxes for hunting purposes 2 centuries ago must have been a brilliant idea from our colonial past. Said no farmer ever. Get ready for a real-life horror story. When it comes to taking down their prey, foxes are not your average killers. These sly predators aren't picky eaters. They're notorious for going after lambs and goats, causing an alarming 5% loss or more, depending on the farm. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. What really sets them apart is their chilling practice known as surplus killing, where they mercilessly slaughter far more animals than they could possibly eat. It's a gruesome strategy that doesn't make farming any easier. Foxes specifically target vulnerable lambs and goats by biting straight into their throats or necks from behind, often requiring multiple bites to get the job done. Now you might be wondering why fully grown animals aren't on the menu for these foxes. It's quite simple really. Due to their limited strength, they just can't take down bigger prey or crush bones. So what happens to all those mysterious disappearances of poultry and other small farm animals? It seems the foxes are cleverly using their underground dens as nurseries by bringing in small carcasses to feed their hungry kits, leaving farmers scratching their heads. The impact of fox predation is a staggering reality for farmers. The annual cost of sheep farming losses alone amounts to approximately 7.5 million and can range between 4 and 30% of lambs being taken down, which is no small number. This loss isn't just financial, it's also deeply emotional, especially considering that the majority of these attacks occur within the first 24 hours after birth, when young lambs are most vulnerable. As a new lamb arrives while the first one remains close to its mother, bleeding and helpless, even a single fox can quickly capitalize on this situation. It's nothing short of heartbreaking. However, birds seem to be an entirely different story altogether. Imagine a free-range chicken coop as if it were an all-you-can-eat buffet for these sly predators. The damage they can cause is simply devastating. Fox attacks on birds are a force to be reckoned with. Unlike their stealthy approach with sheep, where they target vulnerable lambs one by one, foxes can go all out when it comes to free-range chickens. They won't stop at just snatching a single bird, they'll clear the coop in no time. You might find yourself stepping into a chilling scene, either a gruesome pile of carcasses or a scattered mess of feathers. Foxes are opportunistic hunters, and they love an easy meal. They'll often carry off one chicken to their den, only to return for more. But when cornered by a large flock in a confined space, a fox's instincts may push it to kill multiple birds at once. In some instances, they've even been known to wipe out entire chicken coops, like the time a farmer in Norfolk discovered 40 of his 200 hens brutally killed by a marauding fox. It was a heart-wrenching scene, with carcasses scattered all over the place. The sheer scale of destruction by a single fox is staggering. Imagine one cunning predator taking down an astonishing 87 out of 100 chickens, leaving only 3 behind. It paints a vivid picture of their relentless hunting skills. But what would happen if we multiply that by millions? The prospect can send shivers down any farmer's spine, especially in Australia where this menace is particularly prevalent. While shooting appears to be the most straightforward solution, carried out under the cover of night from the safety of a car with a rifle and spotlight, its effectiveness relies heavily on 2 critical factors: the shooter's precision and the fox's caution. While some may view shooting as the go-to solution, it has its limitations, mainly targeting younger, less cautious foxes without significantly impacting their threat to lambs or wildlife. Interestingly, this practice is widely adopted by government pest control agencies, landowners, and licensed shooters, leading to a rise in firearm thefts due to inadequate storage. It's crucial not to rush into shooting foxes. There are specific guidelines for a quick and painless kill, making it essential that only trained marksmen with the knowledge of where to aim step forward. Now, let's discuss age and experience. It's often assumed that only adults can shoot foxes, but that's far from true. In Australia, there's an inspiring story about a young girl who received her shooting license at just 13 years old. She was the daughter of an Aussie farmer and learned pest hunting alongside him, focusing on those sly foxes that threatened their sheep. This teenager became quite skilled and, in fact, set a remarkable record with her father in 2015 by taking down 94 predators. But she's not alone. Many rural Australian teens learn to shoot from a young age and develop these skills naturally as part of their daily life. Did you know in Australia, teenagers as young as 12 can get their own junior shooting license? What were you up to at that age compared to these Aussie teens who are battling foxes? For many of them, this isn't just a skill, but something they learn from their families. The story of that farmer's daughter is particularly inspiring. She got her license at 13 and, along with her father, set a record by taking down nearly 200 predators in 2015. But here's an interesting part. Many Aussie fox hunters use unique tactics to lure these sly animals out. They often do their shooting at night from the comfort of a vehicle, relying on spotlights to guide them and whistles mimicking rabbit sounds to attract the prey. However, there's a catch: shooting from a moving car is against the rules, as it can be both inaccurate and inhumane. But there's another rule that really stands out. In Australia's rural landscape, firearms are more than just tools. They're an integral part of life. And when it comes to dealing with foxes, the rules are clear: only shoot to kill, and never use light or sound tricks that could harm others in the long run. This isn't just about following the law. It's a matter of respect for these cunning animals and their fellow creatures. But what you might find surprising is how well Australia balances its tough gun laws with the needs of its farming community. Despite being known worldwide for strict regulations, farmers here have specific guidelines to ensure responsible use of firearms on their land. It's all about finding that balance between protecting crops, livestock, and the environment while keeping everyone safe, including those sly foxes. Australia's gun laws might seem tough, but for its farmers, they're just part of the job description. With one firearm for almost every 7 people nationwide, having a license isn't hard. It's actually pretty straightforward. Farmers also get access to special firearms that others don't. It's safe to say they hold a sort of elite status when it comes to gun ownership in Australia, but farmers aren't alone in their battle against the sly foxes. State services take an active role in culling the population, and there are even campaigns encouraging hunters and farmers to join forces and keep these pests at bay. Cash rewards are the real deal when it comes to tackling those sly foxes in Australia. In Victoria alone, under a year ago, hunters pocketed $1 million by eliminating 100,000 pests. The authorities even contributed million into a prize fund over 3 years, successfully killing an astonishing 400,000 foxes, with each hunter earning just $0 per fox. Despite the reward being modest, it made all the difference in taking on such a massive problem. Now, there are special clubs dedicated to traditional fox hunting, echoing the practices that marked the beginning of these cunning critters' dominance on the continent. Unlike in the UK, where this pastime is prohibited, Australians persist in fox shooting, and they're not letting tradition get in their way. So why do it? Winter is when the chase is on. Every week across Australia, hunting clubs saddle up with their trusty hounds for traditional horseback fox hunting. However, this practice is not without its critics, who argue that using dogs to hunt foxes isn't just outdated but inhumane. Despite opposition from those who see it as a relic of the past, it continues among the affluent on private lands. On the other hand, supporters insist there's nothing ethically wrong with it, even if it does seem contentious. What if instead of hunting them down, we could simply steer foxes away from our farms? And yes, clever minds have found ways to do just that. Consider a light that flashes randomly, convincing these sly critters that they've got unwanted human company nearby and sending them packing. Now, traps are another story altogether. You might think that catching foxes with those flashing lights would solve your farm was once and for all, but hold on to that thought for now, because it's not quite as straightforward. It'd take more time, effort, and money than you might have imagined, bull. And let's be honest, even then, it wouldn't be the most reliable way to keep these cunning critters at bay. In fact, only a select few with years of experience can make it work. Now, where traditional hunting methods aren't an option, like in urban areas, traps are often used instead because they're safer for both humans and wildlife. But foxes, as we've seen, are incredibly clever. Take Rambo, for instance. He outsmarted camera traps for over 4 years, dodging every attempt to catch or poison him, with each fox consuming dozens of animals in a single year. Imagine the damage Rambo could do in just 4 years alone. Traps just don't seem like the most reliable solution when it comes to dealing with foxes. These clever critters are notorious for their wariness around traps, and all it takes is a bit of effort to lure one in. Even the most cautious ones can make mistakes. Now let's talk about using poisons as a means to control our fox population. There are only 3 types that are legally sanctioned, and they need to be placed at specific distances from each other, serving as bait for the foxes. Some experts even suggest burying them or spreading them away from ants to minimize the risk of unintended harm to other animals, ensuring these poisons target foxes specifically. Before you start tossing poison around like confetti, remember that there are rules in place for your safety and your neighbors. At least 72 hours prior to setting up any poisonous baits, you're legally required to give everyone nearby the heads up through clear warnings. So don't forget those signs. Now let's dive into a fascinating compound called sodium fluoracetate, or tinati for short, an odorless and tasteless white powder with a special dye added as a tracking tool. This potent poison is mixed into fresh, dried, or processed meat baits that can be scattered around by hand or even dropped from above using aircraft. Foxes are particularly susceptible to its effects, which makes this compound quite effective in controlling their populations. But before we dabble in the world of toxic baits, let's acknowledge that these measures come with strict warnings. For your own safety and your neighbors, clear 3-day advance notices are mandatory via signs to ensure everyone is on high alert around poisonous traps. Now onto one such compound, sodium fluoracetate, or tinati, a white powder often dyed for tracking purposes. This odorless, tasteless poison forms potent meat baits, dropped from aircraft or scattered by hand, with foxes being its primary target due to their susceptibility. Fortunately, there's a relatively low risk of poisoning unintended targets like birds and reptiles, but it poses a high threat to dogs and a slightly lower one for herbivores. Originally synthesized in 1896 and patented as a pesticide in Germany in 1927, tinati was first used effectively against rabbits in Australia by the early 1950s, later expanding its use against foxes, wild dogs, and pigs. The world's largest attempt at invasive fox eradication through these baits took place in Tasmania in 2011, but this method remains a contentious issue among locals who have raised petitions to ban it. As an alternative, carbon monoxide has been considered, requiring the precise location of a fox den for its use. When it comes to handling localized fox problems, like having a den right in your backyard or even on your farm, things get a bit more nuanced. Some people swear by carbon monoxide as an effective yet humane way out. As long as you're using just the right amount to ensure a swift end, it does seem like a viable option. But I can see how it might come across as harsh. A kinder approach would be to train these cunning creatures that raiding your farmed animals is not worth their while, leaving a bitter taste in their mouths literally. Scientists actually did just that through an experiment, where they laced chicken baits with a substance that triggers vomiting after consumption. The interesting part, even after one episode of an upset stomach, the fox's bait intake dropped by 30%. This method, though promising, might not be enough to deter them from preying on native species. So it's still important to explore all your options carefully. But here in Australia, where foxes are a real concern, we've got another story altogether. Regular fences just aren't going to cut it. These clever critters can jump right over them or squeeze through tiny openings like they're not even there. And if all else fails, some determined foxes won't think twice about digging their way under. So, Aussies had to get creative and come up with custom-made barriers that could keep these sly predators at bay. But be warned, they don't come cheap and require regular TLC to stay in top shape. As a result, only the most valuable livestock gets this extra layer of security. The Australian countryside isn't about building massive fences countrywide. Instead, farmers are all about being proactive when dealing with these cunning critters before they become a real problem. It's an ongoing battle that would be close to impossible to win if not tackled head-on. So, what does it take? Joining forces with neighbors and getting creative is the way forward here. Using affordable and legal methods like shooting, traps, poisons, or even, believe it or not, a scarecrow. But let's talk about this high-tech gadget that's caught our attention. It's nothing short of genius. Imagine a tall figure armed with powerful signal lights, ready to deter foxes up to 650 feet away in the dead of night. As these sly creatures draw near, motion sensors detect their body heat and trigger an intense blast of ultrasound combined with bright white flashes. Talk about a fox deterrent showstopper. It's not just your run-of-the-mill scarecrow anymore, folks. This tech-savvy guardian of the farm has an AI upgrade that can tell friend from foe, and it's changing the game. Now, it can specifically target those pesky critters we don't want around. Plus, who would have thought a device originally made to chase birds away from blueberry fields could be just what farmers need to keep dingoes at bay? Welcome to the world of laser scarecrows. These Aussie innovators are putting their creative thinking caps on and coming up with some seriously impressive deterrents, and we can't wait to see what's next in this wild battle between tech and nature. You've got your trusty laser scarecrow keeping those birds at bay, but when it comes to foxes, you're going to need a different kind of defense system entirely. Enter guard animals. Not just your average household dog, we're talking alpacas, sheep, and even donkeys joining the fight against these sly predators. This unconventional approach has proven successful in countries like Australia, where farmers have harnessed the power of these fluffy guardians to protect their goats and sheep from foxes. But remember, it's not as simple as just getting a dog or an alpaca. This is all about strategy. It works best for smaller areas, and if you've got a large farm, you might need an entire alpaca squad to keep those cunning foxes at bay. So, let's gear up and explore some more of these clever techniques in the fight against these sneaky critters. For thousands of years, farmers have been using canines as their ultimate defense system against predators. The roots of dog-guarded farms date back nearly 9,000 years to ancient Greece, where livestock was first paired with puppies, and these furry guardians were essentially raised like family within the herd or pack. As they grow into protective adults, it's not just a job, it's a deep-seated instinctual drive to safeguard their friends. But surprisingly, this time-tested practice isn't widely adopted in Australia, possibly due to the government's lack of support for breeding and promoting guard dogs as an official livestock protection method. Catch you soon. Keep exploring and learning with us. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss a new video. See you in the next one.